welcome to EU Insights from the European Parliament. I'm Stefan Grobe. The war in Gaza has profoundly changed the region and international politics. Millions of people have been affected. Geopolitical power relations have shifted. At the same time, the international community is faced with pressing questions. What's next after the ceasefire? What political, diplomatic, and humanitarian steps are necessary to create prospects for lasting peace and prosperity? Questions I want to discuss today with my guest, a member of the European Parliament, a member of the Delegations for Relations with Palestine, Matthias Nemec from Slovenia, from the Social Democrats. Welcome for joining me and thank you.
The pleasure is mine.
So let's start with the geopolitical perspective. How has the war in Gaza reshaped the political landscape in the Middle East?
I mean, a lot. I will start with the conflict with Ukraine. It seemed that bring the idea of the European Union when it comes to the reflection of the position of the conflicts worldwide on the right side, let's say, because we were those who were claiming for a peace, ceasefire, and start a new process of the negotiations. On the other hand, we faced the reality in the Middle East, where everything went on the contrary. So even the European Union is not so or that united, as in the case of Ukraine. And the world rights map of the conflict, it's not good. We are facing more than 100 different conflicts worldwide. For the first time, we were clearly talking about the possibility of having a huge conflict. I don't want to even say the Third World War. So now it's time to a little bit take a breath and to stop negotiating, to reboost the European diplomacy. And instead of talking about rearming, talking about the peace process.
You know the region very well. What would you say? What regional powers have gained influence over the past 3 years?
I mean, they did, because it's quite obvious that the hegemony of the United States, it's not that strong that it used to be in the past. We can see a huge influence combined with Russian influence and Chinese.
I mean the regional players.
And of course, both of those big actors has a huge influence in the region. And as you can see, there are many regional actors as Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, that are getting more and more influence in the region. And of course, they have their own relations with the biggest power. I cannot, and I'm sorry for that, not include the European Union in that.
What about Qatar and the other Gulf states?
Sure, I mean, I just mentioned 3 of them. There are many of them.
Yeah.
So also those countries are fighting for their own position in the region and reflecting the position in confront of the big players. That's what I'm missing is that the will from every side to really stop the peace process, because the ceasefire is not enough, as we can see.
What about Israel? You alluded to that. There are, of course, different opinions within the European Union whether and how to support Israel. Would you say that Israel has gained influence? Because it seems to me that nothing can be done without Israeli approval.
Sure, you're right. I mean, the interesting thing is that in this house we got an interesting debate before the October of 7. It was in July of 2023. And we were talking about the stage of democracy in that country. If you remember, in that period, they got a huge demonstration in Tel Aviv because of the lack of the, let's say, rule of law in the state of Israel. Of course, that's been forgotten for a while. But if you remember, after the 7th October, we started to talk, to speak about Israel as the only democracy in the Middle East, and that they have the right to defend themselves. And of course, we were calling for the relief of the hostages. So nowadays, they are as much as power as they have a good relation with the United States, or maybe with the Trump administration at all. So we are, after the 7th October, we went through an incredible process with realizing that we cannot speak anymore about the only democracy in the region anymore. Mostly the hostage has been relieved. And of course, this right to defense went broader, and they attacked six different countries. So of course, it seems like technically they got and they are having much more influence, but strategically, my position is that they are losing a big time. As you can see, they are let's say hostages in their own country because of their own politics. So I've been in Israel a couple of months ago, and I cannot say that that's a safe country. And also you can feel the fear around. So I'm asking myself, is that the life that they're claiming to live? Both of them, the Palestinian and the Israeli. And speaking about, as a European, we have a lot of experiences of that. And we were able to manage after the Second World War how to, let's see, build a common prosperity.
So would you say that at the beginning, when Hamas attacked Israel, European and world sympathies were with Israel, but then Israel, in responding the way it did, that support and sympathy was diminished the more Israel continued the fight. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it is a starting point, but we have to start from the very beginning. What is written in the, let's say, a government document. I mean, the contract between parties in the Israel government, and it's saying what would be the map, the roadmap for them. So it is to have a Israel, let's say, as it's mentioned 3,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. I cannot imagine to have that kind of debate in the European Union, because I don't know where to start, or maybe in the antique, or during the period of Greece or Rome. It is difficult to have that kind of debate in 2025. But strategically, it seems that they're as strong as the connection with the United States is, and of course, their link to the, let's say, biggest capital.
What do you make of the argument that you hear occasionally that goes something like this? Only because Israel's uncompromising military response were they able to get what they wanted, which is hostages back and the diminishing role of Hamas.
I mean, let me be clear. Hamas is internationally recognized as a terroristic organization, so there are no doubts. So that must be clear. And it's difficult to have that kind of dialogue with someone who is actually killing people around. And this is a terroristic organization. On the other hand, we have an elected government, let's say a part of democratic world, it's doing the same. So I'm not saying who's the bad guy and who is the worst guy. I'm convinced that we as the European Union, we have to rely on the international law. And this is also the position of the UN, so United Nations. So it's not on us to take apart who's the bad guy and who's the good guy of the situation. We have just to follow the international law, the international multilateralism that has been for that purpose after the Second World War. But it seems like that there is a huge lack of democracy worldwide talking about. And let me say, the United States are not, they're the same country that used to be 5 years or maybe a couple of years ago. And also in the European Union, we are facing in some countries the same situation. So the position of the European Union must be crystal clear, fighting for international law, for the international institutions, and that's all. And we don't have to choose on which part are we.
Would you give the Trump administration any credit for the place we're at right now? I mean, when the crisis started, the Biden administration was unable to do that. The Europeans were unable to. Nobody was able to do that until Trump stepped on the brakes and enforced his will on all the players, including Israel. You see any other international player who could have done that, or would you say that Israel was kind of weakened by the fact that it had almost become a pariah state and they needed some sort of off-ramp?
I mean, I don't know who is playing for whom in this case. I mean, the relationship between Israel and the United States is quite complicated for many reasons. So there has been no big change, as you already mentioned, between the Biden administration and the Trump administration. It seems that Trump is even more active in the... Yeah, but let's see what could be the result. So my first opinion was, after the, let's say, so-called cease agreement is, just to not put a, let's say, a focus on the issue of Gaza anymore, internationally speaking, because the events on the field are not going on the right way. So still daily we are facing many deaths from both sides, especially from the Palestinian side, and it doesn't seem that it's meant to be, let's say, the right way to reach a peace agreement. But it's the only hope that we have, and this is what I miss here. The thing that I miss is the European Union to give on the table some kind of proposal to be more active, as we did in the past. Mm-hmm. Let's say just to make an international confrontation between both or many proposals that are on the table. Of course, we cannot do that with the local, regional actors on the field like Egypt, Turkey, and the other partners.
Yeah. I mean, Europe has or should have some leverage. We're, compared to the United States, we're closer to the region at stake. We're giving a lot of money to both Israel and the Palestinians. And we have a well-functioning diplomatic apparatus. So how could we put all these things to good use? And I think the main question is, how do we rebuild trust between the conflicting parties, and what can Europe do here?
I mean, we are that case. I mean, we experience how to make this building, these institutions work. I mean, you know how difficult is the European history, and we made it. I'm coming from Slovenia, for the bordering region with Italy, with an amazing past. I mean, we faced the First World War, I mean, the first fascism, the Second World War, let's say, the confrontation between socialism and capitalism. On the other hand, my city now is hosting the project of the European Capital of Culture with the Italian Gorizia. I mean, this is an amazing story. So we should be let's say, the guys or the ones
go-to person when
who
it comes
can
to
be
peace building.
more involved because of our own history. Mm-hmm. I mean, I cannot say that America has the same, let's say, historical position than we got. And then I will put also, I would like to ask the Israeli, who else than European can be more helpful, because of many reasons that we passed through. I mean, we are a successful story, and that's why we should be a little bit more engaged and not to leave just to the Americans, or maybe not the Americans, but to the Trump administration, to their own job, because I don't know what is the goal. Is to having a Riviera, that it was mentioned many times by the administration of Trump, or maybe to rebuild the trust, to rebuild a two-state, let's say, solution, to put on the same level to, let's say, future partners, to have the same dialogue on the same level, because nowadays we cannot say that we have the same position the Palestinian state, or maybe the potential Palestinian state, in confront of the Israeli interests.
Everything you say is right. But what is also right is that Europe is deeply divided when it comes to the Middle East.
Yeah.
So there also needs to be some trust building between ourselves within the European Union. How does that look like?
But I mean, the position is changing. I mean, I will start with this house. From the 7th of October, the position was quite clear. In the different scenes there, the position of the parliament has changed Yeah, dramatically. We adopted a very important resolution with a big majority. So we realized, I mean, somehow, that it's not just about the 7th October, but it's overall the last 80 years. I mean, how it is possible to find let's say, a solution for a long term. It is quite true that we are coming for different historical moments, especially in relationship with the Jewish people. But allow me to say, I mean, I will use also again my personal point of view. My people, Slovenians, used to be many times seen as a Palestinians, and during the Second World War, they've been in the same, let's say, role as a Jews. So that's why my position it's quite clear. I mean, I see the both as a partners in a dialogue, and that's why I'm more optimistic when it comes to the position of the European Union. It seems out that we are realizing slowly that it's not about the past, but it's about the future. I mean, we did some huge mistakes in the past as a European community at all, and we do not have to repeat the same, let's say, historical issues and use them for the purpose of the future. So that's I think that it's our common focus. Let's think about the future, not about the past.
Is that focus shared by the member states as well?
Not at all. I mean, I can be very frank with you. We have some big challenges in Hungary, let's say in Czech Republic, or maybe in Austria, some also in Germany. On the other hand, we have crystal clear the position of Ireland, of Spain, of Slovenia. We don't know what is the situation in Italy, but it's, let's say, changing dramatically in the last period. So it's ongoing. But at least we have to take care not to collaborate with those who are not taking care about the international law anymore, because we could be, at some point, with those who are doing so.
Let's take a look at the situation on the ground in Gaza right now. We know we've seen the pictures on television for a long time. What is the most urgent thing to do right now?
I mean, of course, ceasefire, it's not a ceasefire at all. But I mean, the humanitarian aid, it's the first step to do so. Of course, we have different position on that. Some are saying that it's enough. Someone is saying that it's not. But come on, let's open, please, a Gaza doors and allow to the journalists to make their own opinion, and not to allow to the Netanyahu government to.
Yeah. From what you know and from what you hear officially, is European aid reaching the people?
I mean, there's been not allowed to any European diplomat to enter in the Gaza since 7th of October. So that's obvious. So it's difficult for us to see what is going on the ground. Of course, we have the communication with the humanitarian worker, but that's not enough. So what are they hiding if it's so crystal clear? So first of all, we have to allow to the international aid to enter into Gaza, to the diplomats, and of course to the journalists, to see on the field what's going on, know what it's telling to us to be the reality on the field.
The government of Cyprus has presented a plan to be sort of a middleman between the European Union and especially Israel. Do you see this moving forward?
I mean, any kind of initiative has to be welcomed from us. Any kind, of course. Cyprus, it's too close and too involved and too engaged not to be, let's say, a EU representative when it comes to the proposals. Yeah, this is at least what I'm missing from the EAS, from the External Service, from Madame Callas or Madame von der Leyen, to make some kind of proposal. And what I missed mostly was a little bit of empathy in the confronts of the people living there, because they're all of them just people as we are. So let's treat them as, let's say, equal, not just choosing the path.
Do you see a risk, or maybe more neutral, a situation in which many of the civilian population would try to get to Europe, to flee that conflict zone, if especially nothing happens in the short term?
I mean, in this case, it's not just about Gaza or the Palestinian, but we have a huge problematic situation in Libya, for example, in Tunisia, even in Egypt. So all the Mediterranean, it's let's say, it's put it under pressure for many reasons. So it's not just about the conflict in Palestine. So the migration must be seen as let's say, a big issue, and it is. But let's say nowadays, the migration is not the biggest problem in the European Union. Somehow we are capable to manage the situation. That's what I'm missing is, it's not just thinking about let's say, the migration issue on the field, but I think that European Union must be even more vocal or active in the diplomatic or political field. For example, in Libya, we are not well represented. We have some connection in Tunisia. Okay, we have also good connection with Egypt, but it's not just about those three countries that we are talking about.
When we look at the humanitarian situation, it doesn't get better until all the conditions are there, the conditions that were laid out in the ceasefire agreement. And I think the main point here is the disarmament of Hamas. And every European politician, every regional politician, every global politician says that they must be disarmed and they must play no further role in Gaza.
Yeah.
That seems to me the biggest obstacle, and I don't see any progress. From what you're seeing?
I can agree with you, but my expectation, the same expectation also to the Israeli government.
Yeah.
So when we are talking about those steps, we have to present the situation how it is on the both sides. I mean, to be very frank, to the Palestinian peoples, it's been, let's say, not allowed to have the elections since 2006 for many reasons. We are talking openly about let's say, the biggest outdoor prison in the world when we're talking about Gaza, even before the 7th of October. So that's why, I mean, of course, that could be the first step to do so. Even those, let's say, perspective has been shown by the other partners from the region. The expectation was raised also by the countries of Saudi Arabia and Egypt and so on to do so. On the other hand, we have no political, let's say, institution in Palestine to be able to have a dialogue. For many reasons, or it wasn't allowed, or they were not able to build an institution to have that position. On the other hand, as I said, we're talking about the Hamas, and our expectation is high because we are recognizing them as terroristic organizations. But what about the, let's say, democratically elected government of Netanyahu, that it's recognized as the farthest right government since the beginning of the State of Israel? So I think that also Netanyahu has never been recognized as a peacemaker in the region. In contrary, he's been always seen the politician who can bring more difficulties than solutions in the region.
Well, how can the international actors that made the ceasefire agreement possible, so the Americans, the Saudis, the Egyptians, the Emiratis, how can they make sure that Hamas plays no further role in the future? I
mean, the last resolution adopted in the United States are showing that we cannot even talk about the international community, because the international community, it's in a majority trying to push on Israel to adopt some solutions on the field. We can just talk about the biggest actors, and the biggest actors are not the international community anymore, because the votings in the United Nations are showing that the big part of the world, including the majority of the European states, member states, are in favor of the dialogue of two-state solution and so on. So that we have to do, at least, it's to stop sending to the Israeli government weapons, because many countries are doing so because of their own profits, and of course of the lack of the, let's say, humanitarian point of view. This is one thing. Now we have adopted a, let's say, we reframe the visa-free regime.
Agreement.
Yeah, an association agreement also. So we have to rethink about it. What is, because it is not even the position on the Israel anymore, but it's on ourselves. Because if we will not fight for the international, what about this idea of the European Union? And who will fight for this idea if we're not going to fight for the international or the international multilateralism? Right. So that's why it's the position of European Union is changing. It's too late, but at least it's changing. Never it's too late. So I'm really keeping some hope that at some point we will say, come on, what is enough is enough. Yeah. First of all, let's rethink about the association agreement. Let's stop sending them weapons. Let's think about the visa liberalization system. Can we host, let's say, the Israeli army having a holidays on the European territory after the events in Gaza? Yeah. So those things that is needed to reflect on.
Speaking of hope, you mentioned in passing the two-state solution.
Yeah.
Now, every politician in Europe you ask says that this is the only viable option. I just had a chance to talk to the president of Cyprus about it, and he said in very clear terms, as you are, that the two-state solution offers the only viable perspective for the region. So my question is, do you see this really happening? Is there a chance that we're all going to see two states in that troubled region in the mid-term, maybe, or at least in the long term?
I mean, that would be a huge political step for the Israeli authorities, because they're still keeping to taking territory with the so-called settlers on the field, and that territory has been taken by from the Palestinian people. I mean, that's why they did it in a purpose not to allow to have a unique territory on the field, and this is one of, let's say, one of the top priorities when you want to have a state. So you have to have a territory, and this is a predisposition to have a state, one of the predisposition. But on the other hand, what could be another solution? Because, I mean, what would be a federation, or let's give a minorities rights? They will be able to do so. It would be very, very difficult, because the atmosphere, because of many events, especially in the last decades, hasn't allowed to the people to go out of their own frames, and we have to push them. So to put the Palestinians in the position to open the negotiation, to have the same dialogue, to be treated as let's say, humans. I will say like this, because they are not. It seems so. The elementary thing is to put them on the same position. That would be a state, a free state of Palestine.
All right.
As I did in the very beginning, we were managed to build this institution after the biggest conflict, the Second World War. So nothing is impossible. And when I hear that it's impossible, I don't want to believe it, because we did it, and that's possible too.
That's an excellent conclusion, Matthias Nemec. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. EU Insights from the European Parliament.
Thank you so much.
That's all for today. Thank you very much.